The coach didn't even look up when she stepped onto the mat. The gym was loud, too loud. Laughter bounced off the padded walls, mixed with the slap of bare feet and the sharp crack of bodies hitting the canvas. Posters of past champions lined the walls, all of them loud, aggressive faces frozen mid-roar. This was a place where confidence was currency, and silence was mistaken for weakness. She stood near the edge of the mat, hands folded behind her back, wearing a plain white GI with no patches. No stripes. No name stitched anywhere. Nothing to announce who she was. The coach finally noticed her when she didn't join the warm-up line. "Hey," he called out, smirking. "You lost?" A few students snickered. She shook her head politely. "I'm here for the open mat." The coach raised an eyebrow and looked her up and down. She was smaller than most of the class. Lean. Calm. The kind of calm that didn't register as confidence to people who only understood noise. "This isn't yoga," he said, loud enough for the room to hear. "You sure you can keep up?" More laughter. She nodded once. "I can try." That did it. The coach grinned and clapped his hands. "All right, everyone, looks like we've got a volunteer." He pointed to the center of the mat. "Let's give her a little welcome." One of the bigger students stepped forward, cracking his neck. Blue belt. Strong. Smug. "Go easy," the coach added mockingly. "She's new." She stepped onto the mat without hesitation. No nerves. No bravado. She bowed quietly, respectfully. The blue belt didn't bother. They slapped hands. And in the first second, nothing happened. Then she moved. Not fast. Not slow. Just precise. The blue belt lunged, confident, aggressive, and suddenly his balance was gone. His weight shifted where it shouldn't have. His grip slipped. His breath caught. In less than 3 seconds, he was on the mat. Pinned. The room went silent. The coach laughed once, short, disbelieving. "Beginner's luck," he said quickly. Again. They reset. This time the blue belt came harder. It didn't matter. She flowed around him like water, anticipation written into every step. She wasn't reacting, she was waiting. When she took him down again, cleaner this time, the sound of his GI hitting the mat echoed louder than before. No one laughed now. The coach's smile tightened. "Okay," he said, stepping forward. "Let's switch partners." A purple belt. Then a brown. One by one, they went to the mat. One by one, they didn't get back up the way they expected. No wasted motion. No unnecessary strength. Just control, total and unmistakable. The gym had gone completely quiet. Finally, the coach stepped onto the mat himself. He didn't smile this time. "You've trained before," he said. She met his eyes, calm as ever. "Yes." "How long?" he asked. She adjusted her belt, still plain, still unmarked. "Long enough." The coach squared his stance, ego flaring beneath the surface. "All right," he said. "Let's see what you've really got." She bowed again. As they closed the distance, something shifted in the air, something the coach felt but couldn't name. Because in that moment, as her posture settled and her focus sharpened, he realized too late. This wasn't a quiet beginner standing in front of him. This was someone who had walked onto national mats. Someone who had stood on podiums. Someone who didn't need patches to be dangerous. And the match hadn't even truly begun yet. The coach circled her slowly, eyes narrowed now, reading her stance the way he'd taught hundreds of students to do. But something about it unsettled him. She wasn't tense. She wasn't bouncing on her feet or reaching for grips. She was waiting. "Careful," someone whispered from the sidelines. The coach shot forward, snapping for a collar grip, trying to establish dominance early. She let him take it, just for a moment. Long enough for him to think he had control. Then she shifted her hips. Not away. Through him. His balance disappeared like a light switched off. 1 second he was pressing forward, the next his feet weren't under him anymore. He stumbled, caught himself barely, heart thudding harder than he expected. The room inhaled. The coach reset, jaw clenched. He came again, this time lower, heavier, trying to impose strength. She met him calmly, framing, redirecting, never fighting force with force. "You're strong," she said quietly, almost conversational. That stung more than a taunt. He pushed harder. That was the mistake. She stepped inside his base, turned her shoulder, and suddenly he was airborne, just briefly, just enough. He hit the mat with a thud that echoed through the gym. Gasps broke out. Before he could scramble, she passed his guard with effortless precision, pressure settling into his chest like gravity itself. He bridged. She floated. He tried to recover half guard. She denied it without breaking posture. Her control was suffocating. The coach's breathing grew loud. Ragged. "Move," someone whispered. He tried. She advanced. Her knee slid into position. Her grip adjusted. Everything she did was quiet, no wasted motion, no flourish. Just inevitability. The coach felt it before he saw it, the setup tightening around him like a net. His arm was isolated. His shoulder angle wrong. Too late. She paused. Not to show mercy, but to allow him to recognize it. "You can tap," she said softly. The room froze. The coach's pride screamed at him to resist. To fight. To prove something. But his body told the truth. He tapped. The sound, 2 quick slaps against the mat, was unmistakable. Silence followed. Thick. Absolute. She released immediately and stood, bowing as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The coach stayed on the mat for a moment longer than necessary, staring up at the ceiling, chest rising and falling. When he finally sat up, the gym didn't look the same anymore. "Who?" he asked hoarsely, "are you?" She tied her belt calmly, eyes steady. "My name isn't important," she said. "But I think you already know the answer you're really asking." She turned toward her bag at the edge of the mat. And that's when one of the students, phone trembling in his hand, looked at the screen and whispered. "Coach, she's ranked." Every head snapped toward him. "Ranked where?" someone asked. The student swallowed. "Nationally." The coach slowly rose to his feet. And the realization hit him harder than the takedown ever could. Because this quiet woman hadn't come to prove anything. She'd come here for a reason. And he had just given it to her. The word nationally seemed to hang in the air, heavier than any impact the mats had absorbed that day. The coach took a slow step forward, his voice lower now, stripped of bravado. "That ranking, how old is it?" She zipped her bag halfway, then paused. "From last season." A ripple moved through the room. "That means," someone started. "Yes," she said gently. "It still counts." The coach ran a hand through his hair, eyes flicking to the unmarked GI, the plain belt. "Then why," he asked, "are you wearing white?" She finally looked at him fully, really looked. Not with challenge. Not with judgment. Just clarity. "Because I wanted to train," she said. "Not be treated differently." No one spoke. One of the brown belts broke the silence. "You could have walked in with patches. Titles. People would have rolled differently." She nodded. "Exactly." The coach exhaled, long and slow. "So this was a test." "For me," she replied. "No." He winced. "For you," she continued. "For this room." The gym felt smaller suddenly. She gestured around them. I wanted to see how a place that teaches control handles power it doesn't recognize. The coach swallowed. And? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document, not a medal, not a certificate, but something more official. She didn't open it. Just held it. I was invited here, she said calmly, to observe. To evaluate. No announcements. No special treatment. The coach's eyes widened. By who? She met his gaze. The Federation. Murmurs erupted. They're reviewing gyms for national affiliation, someone whispered. The coach felt his stomach drop. She slipped the document back into her bag. Skill can be taught anywhere, she said. Culture can't. She slung the bag over her shoulder and stepped toward the exit. The coach moved instinctively, blocking her path, not aggressively, just urgently. Wait. She stopped. What happens now? He asked. She studied him for a long moment. That, she said, depends on what happens after I leave. She reached for the door. And just before she stepped out, another student, voice shaking, asked the question everyone else was afraid to. Are we still being considered? She paused, hand on the handle. And the room leaned forward, waiting for her answer. She didn't turn around right away. For a moment, the only sound in the gym was the soft hum of the overhead lights and the uneven breathing of people who suddenly understood how close they were to something much bigger than a bad first impression. Then she spoke. Every place is always being considered, she said calmly. The question is, for what? She turned back now, eyes moving slowly across the room. No anger. No triumph. Just assessment. You have talented students, she continued. Strong ones. Dedicated ones. Her gaze settled briefly on the blue belt she'd pinned first. But talent without humility becomes fragile. And fragile systems fail when pressure is applied. The coach nodded once, stiffly. You came here to see how we treat someone without status. Yes, she replied. And how leadership responds when it's challenged. That landed harder than anything else she'd said. One of the younger students spoke up, hesitant. If you had come in wearing your titles, would this have gone differently? She considered that. For some of you, she said, yes. For others, no. That's why appearances matter less than reactions. She stepped fully back onto the mat now, not to fight, but to stand among them. Gyms don't lose affiliation because of a bad role, she went on. They lose it because no one learns from it. The coach straightened, meeting her eyes. Then tell us, he said quietly. What did you learn? She studied him for a long second. That you're not beyond correction, she said. But you're closer to the edge than you think. A murmur moved through the students, not defensive this time, but thoughtful. She adjusted the strap of her bag. I'll be writing my report tonight. It won't just be about what happened here today. The coach's jaw tightened. What else will it be about? She glanced at the wall of championship posters, faces frozen in dominance, glory, noise. It'll be about whether this place wants to produce winners, she said, or practitioners. She turned toward the door again. Behind her, the coach called out, voice steady but raw. If you came back, would you train here? She paused. I don't return to places, she said carefully, that don't change after being shown the truth. Her hand rested on the handle once more. And whether this place changes, she added, won't be decided by me. The door opened. Light spilled in from the hallway. And as she stepped through it, every person in that gym realized the same thing at the same time. This wasn't the end of the evaluation. It was the beginning of it. The door closed behind her with a soft click that echoed louder than any shout had earlier. No one moved. For several seconds, the gym felt suspended, like a breath held too long. The posters on the wall no longer felt inspiring. The laughter from before felt distant, almost embarrassing. The coach broke the silence first. "Line up," he said. The students hesitated, confused. This wasn't on the schedule. "I said line up," he repeated, firmer now. They obeyed. He stood in front of them, no longer relaxed, no longer performing. His voice was quieter, but it carried weight. "What you saw today," he said, "wasn't about strength. And it wasn't about rank." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "It was about how fast respect disappeared when we thought we were better than someone." A few heads dropped. The blue belt swallowed. "Coach." "I didn't even bow." "No," the coach replied. "You didn't." He turned, eyes moving from face to face. "And I didn't stop it." That admission changed something. Meanwhile, down the hallway, she walked steadily, bag over her shoulder, footsteps unhurried. Her phone vibrated once. Then again. She ignored it. At the far end of the corridor, she stopped beside a window that overlooked the parking lot. She reached into her bag and pulled out the folded document at last. She opened it. At the top, National Jiu-Jitsu Federation, Facility Review, Phase 1. Below it, blank lines. She hadn't written a single word yet. Back in the gym, one of the students raised a hand hesitantly. "Coach, if they lose affiliation?" The coach cut him off. "Then that's on me." He looked toward the door she had exited through. "And if she comes back, she won't be testing our technique." He swallowed. "She'll be testing whether we listened." Outside, she finally checked her phone. A single message waited on the screen. "Federation, initial impression?" She stared at it for a long moment, then slipped the phone back into her pocket without replying. Because impressions, she knew, were only the surface. And what mattered next was what happened when no one important was watching. She lingered by the window a moment longer, watching students filter out of the building, some laughing nervously, some quiet, all changed in ways they didn't yet understand. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the parking lot, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she allowed herself a slow breath. Inside the gym, the coach dismissed the class early. No music. No chatter. Just the soft sound of mats being cleaned and belts being untied with unusual care. A few students stayed behind, uncertain, as if leaving too quickly might mean missing something important. One of them finally spoke. "Coach, what do we do now?" The coach looked at the center of the mat, the exact spot where he'd tapped. His voice, when it came, was steady but stripped bare. "We start by acting like every person who walks through that door matters," he said. "Even when they don't look like they do." Back outside, she stepped into her car but didn't start it. Instead, she reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a second phone, older, heavier, used only for Federation work. The screen lit up with missed calls. She ignored them too. Because right now, she wasn't thinking like an evaluator. She was thinking like a practitioner. She replayed the moment the coach had bowed, late, but sincerely. The hesitation in his voice. The way the students had gone quiet, not out of fear, but reflection. That mattered. More than rankings. More than reports. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a different name appeared. Unknown gym, head instructor. She didn't answer. Not yet. Inside the building, the coach stood alone on the mat after everyone else had left. He bowed, to no one in particular, and stayed there longer than necessary, as if hoping the act itself might be noticed. Outside, she finally started the engine. As she pulled away, she glanced once more at the gym in the rearview mirror. She knew this part well, the space between judgment and decision. The moment before truth became permanent. Her phone vibrated again. This time, she picked it up. Her thumb hovered over the reply field. And for the first time that day, she allowed herself the smallest, thoughtful smile, because whatever she wrote next would decide far more than one gym's future. It would decide who was watching whom. She typed slowly, deliberately. Federation, initial impression? Reply, technically capable. Culturally unfinished. She sent it, then set the phone face down on the passenger seat. At the gym, the coach locked up for the night. Before turning off the lights, he stopped at the wall of posters. One by one, he took them down, not to erase the past, but to make room for something quieter. Something earned daily. Weeks passed. When the Federation's decision finally arrived, it wasn't a verdict. It was an invitation to improve, to submit to follow-up evaluation, to prove that the lesson had taken root. The gym accepted. Training changed. So did leadership. New students were welcomed without judgment. Old habits were corrected. Respect became automatic, not selective. And one evening, long after the dust had settled, the door opened again. No announcement. No entourage. Just a woman in a plain white GI, unmarked belt tied neatly at her waist. The coach bowed first this time. She returned it. Not as an evaluator. As a practitioner. And the mat, at last, became what it was always meant to be, a place where no one needed to prove who they were.